The words hung in the air between us, heavy with expectation. My wife's eyes shimmered with hope while my heart pounded against my ribs. "I want a baby," she had said so simply, as if asking for takeout. But in that moment, everything changed. If you've ever had your life flash before your eyes, not from danger, but from possibility, you'll understand why I froze. Hey everyone, if this story resonates with you or someone you know, please hit that like button and subscribe to follow more real-life journeys like this one. Your support means everything. I met Eliza during my second year of residency at Boston General. I was running on caffeine and determination, my white coat perpetually wrinkled from the long shifts. She worked in pediatric oncology, a nurse with infinite patience and a smile that somehow never dimmed, even on the worst days. Our first conversation happened over a dropped clipboard, papers scattering across the polished hospital floor at 3 a.m. We both reached for the same form, our fingers brushing. I remember looking up into eyes the color of honey and feeling something shift inside me. "Dr. James Carter," I said, extending my hand formally despite the fact we were both kneeling on the floor. "Nurse Eliza Bennett," she replied with a small laugh. "And I already know who you are. You're the resident who actually thanks the nursing staff." We were married 18 months later. A small ceremony in her parents' backyard in Vermont, autumn leaves creating a natural confetti as we said our vows. We bought a modest townhouse halfway between both our workplaces and settled into the comfortable rhythm of two healthcare professionals building a life together. Our conversations about children had always been theoretical, distant, something for, someday, after my residency, after her master's degree, after we'd traveled to at least 3 continents. We had a plan, carefully constructed like everything else in our lives. But plans, as they say, are made to be broken. It was a Tuesday evening in April when Eliza changed everything. I just finished a 36-hour shift and was half asleep on our couch, a forgotten cup of tea growing cold on the coffee table. She sat down beside me, tucking her legs underneath her in that way she always did when she had something important to say. "James," she said softly, running her fingers through my hair. "I want a baby." I froze. Not a temporary pause, but a complete system shutdown. My brain, usually quick with diagnoses and treatment plans, couldn't process this deviation from our carefully plotted life map. "Now?" I finally managed, my voice cracking slightly. She nodded, her expression a mixture of certainty and vulnerability that made my chest ache. "I know it's not what we planned, but plans change. Life changes us." I took her hands in mine, buying time as I organized my thoughts. "Are you really ready? Are we ready?" The question wasn't meant to dismiss her desire but came from a place of genuine concern. My own childhood had been marked by parents who loved each other but weren't prepared for the reality of raising a child. My father's 60-hour workweeks and my mother's resentment at putting her career on hold had created a home filled with tension and unspoken regrets. "Tell me why," I said gently. "What changed?" Eliza's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled through them. "Mia Williams," she said. I knew the name immediately. A 7-year-old leukemia patient who had been in and out of the pediatric oncology ward for the past year. Eliza had grown especially attached to her, bringing in special treats and staying past her shifts to read stories when Mia's single mother couldn't be there due to work. "She asked me yesterday if I had any children," Eliza continued. "When I said no, she looked so confused and said, 'But you'd be the best mom ever.' And James, it hit me like a lightning bolt. I don't want to wait anymore. Life is so fragile, so unpredictable. Mia might not," her voice broke. I pulled her close, feeling her tears dampen my shirt. "Mia's responding well to the new treatment," I reminded her, though we both knew in our profession that hope and reality often traveled separate paths. "It's not just Mia," she whispered against my chest. "It's everything. It's watching parents with their children in the park and feeling this ache. It's wondering what our child would look like, sound like. Would they have your eyes? My laugh? I'm 32, James. My body is telling me it's time. I pulled back slightly to look at her face, this woman who had seen more suffering than most people could imagine yet still approached each day with compassion and optimism. But my residency isn't over for another year. The hours are brutal. You're still finishing your master's. The timing. There's never a perfect time, she interrupted. We keep waiting for this magical moment when everything aligns, but what if it never comes? What if we're just using someday as a way to avoid making a decision? Her words struck a chord. How many patients had I seen who thought they had more time, only to discover they didn't? How many regrets had I witnessed in the eyes of the dying? I'm scared, I admitted, the words difficult to push past my pride. What if I'm like my father? Always absent, always choosing work. Eliza's expression softened. She placed her palm against my cheek. You are not your father, James. You're thoughtful and present in a way he never learned to be. And I'm not your mother, I won't resent my choices. We'll figure it out together. But the practical aspects, childcare, finances, our careers. All solvable problems, she said with the pragmatism that had first attracted me to her. Difficult, yes, but solvable. The real question is, do you want this? Not someday, but now? I closed my eyes, trying to imagine our life with a child. The sleepless nights would be familiar enough to a doctor, but what about the rest? The responsibility of shaping a human being, the vulnerability of loving someone so completely, the fear of failing them? But then another image formed, Eliza holding our baby, teaching our toddler to walk, the three of us building sandcastles on the beach. A family. Our family. I need time, I finally said. Not to decide if I want children with you, I do. But to process this shift in timeline. Can you give me that? She nodded, disappointment flickering across her face before understanding took its place. Take the time you need. But James? Don't overthink this into oblivion. Sometimes the heart knows what the head is still calculating. The following weeks were a blur of internal debate. I found myself watching parents in the hospital with new eyes, the exhausted father pacing the emergency room with a feverish toddler at 2 a.m., the young mother pumping breast milk beside her premature infant's incubator, the older couple supporting their adult child through a difficult diagnosis. I called my own father, something I rarely did. Our relationship had improved since my mother's death 5 years earlier, but conversations still felt stilted, filled with professional updates rather than emotional truths. Dad, I said after the usual pleasantries, did you always know you wanted to be a father? The silence that followed was so long I thought we'd lost connection. No, he finally answered, his voice rougher than I remembered. Your mother wanted children desperately. I was focused on building my practice. I thought we had time to do both. But you agreed eventually. I did, he said slowly. But I didn't understand what it meant. I thought I could compartmentalize, be a surgeon in one box, a father in another. I was wrong. I swallowed hard. Do you regret it? Having me? James. His voice cracked with emotion I'd rarely heard from him. You are the best thing I've ever done. My greatest regret isn't having you, it's missing so much of you. The baseball games I skipped, the school plays I arrived late to, the conversations we never had because I was always rushing to the next surgery. I'm afraid of making the same mistakes, I admitted. You won't, he said with surprising certainty. You've always been more aware than I was, more intentional. And from what you've told me about Eliza, she won't let you drift away like your mother did with me. Mom didn't let you drift. You chose to. Another long silence. You're right, he finally said. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Fatherhood isn't something that happens to you, it's something you choose, every day. I made the wrong choice too many times. You don't have to repeat my mistakes. After we hung up, I sat in the hospital chapel, not praying but thinking. My father had given me something rare, honesty without defensiveness, regret without excuses. I found Eliza in our garden the next evening, tending to her tomato plants with the same gentle attention she gave her patients. The setting sun cast her in golden light, and suddenly I could see her holding our child in this same garden, teaching them how things grow. "I've been thinking," I said, sitting beside her on the garden bench. She set down her watering can, giving me her full attention. "And? I'm still scared," I admitted. "But I'm more scared of looking back 20 years from now and regretting that we waited for a perfect moment that never came." Hope bloomed across her face. "Does that mean?" "It means I'm ready to try. Not because I feel completely prepared, I don't think anyone ever is, but because I want to build this life with you. Because when I imagine our future, I see children in it. Your children. Our children." She launched herself into my arms with such force that we nearly toppled off the bench. "We're going to be parents," she whispered against my neck. "Well, not immediately," I laughed. "These things take time." She pulled back with a mischievous smile. "Then we should probably start practicing right away, Dr. Carter." "A very sound medical opinion, Nurse Bennett." We expected the journey to parenthood to be straightforward. We were both healthy, in our early 30s, with no family history of fertility issues. But life, as it often does, had other plans. 6 months passed. Then 12. Each negative pregnancy test hit Eliza harder than the last. I found her one morning sitting on the bathroom floor, staring at yet another single pink line, silent tears streaming down her face. "It's not fair," she whispered as I sat beside her. "I take care of sick children every day. I've held mothers as they received the worst news imaginable. All I want is one healthy baby. Just one." I held her as she cried, feeling helpless in a way that doctors particularly despise. "We'll see a specialist," I promised. "There are options, treatments." The fertility specialist was kind but clinical. Tests were ordered, results analyzed. The diagnosis, when it came, was frustratingly vague, unexplained infertility. Nothing specifically wrong, yet something clearly not right. "IVF is your best option," the doctor explained, sliding brochures across her desk. "Success rates for couples in your situation are quite good." What the brochures didn't adequately convey was the emotional and physical toll of fertility treatments. The daily injections I administered to Eliza's abdomen, leaving small bruises that she joked formed a connect-the-dots picture of our determination. The hormonal roller coaster that transformed my steady, optimistic wife into someone who could laugh hysterically one moment and sob uncontrollably the next. "I don't recognize myself anymore," she confessed one night after snapping at me for loading the dishwasher incorrectly, something that would have barely registered before. "I feel like my body is betraying me, and my emotions are betraying us both." I held her close, breathing in the lavender scent of her shampoo. "You are still you," I assured her. "The core of who you are hasn't changed. And neither has how I feel about you." The egg retrieval was successful, 12 mature eggs, a number that made our reproductive endocrinologist smile approvingly. 9 fertilized. 5 made it to blastocyst stage. 3 were deemed high quality enough for transfer or freezing. "Just 3 chances," Eliza whispered as we drove home from the clinic. "What if it's not enough?" I reached across the console to take her hand. "Then we'll consider other options. Donor eggs, adoption. There are many ways to build a family." She nodded, but I could see the worry etched in the lines around her eyes. For Eliza, this had become more than a desire for a child, it was a test she felt she was failing, a reflection on her worthiness as a woman, though I repeatedly assured her it wasn't. The first embryo transfer failed. The second resulted in a chemical pregnancy, a positive test that faded to negative within days, a ghost of possibility that haunted us both. We took a break before the third transfer, our last chance with the embryos we had created. Eliza threw herself into work, taking extra shifts that left her too exhausted for conversation when she came home. I focused on finishing my residency, accepting the chief resident position that added administrative duties to my already packed schedule. We were drifting, both of us too afraid to acknowledge it. The turning point came unexpectedly. I arrived home late one night to find Eliza sitting at our kitchen table with a familiar face, Sandra Williams, Mia's mother. Between them sat a photo album. "James," Eliza said, her eyes brighter than I'd seen in months. Sandra brought pictures of Mia's birthday party. "She's been in remission for 6 months now." Sandra smiled tiredly but genuinely. Mia insisted Eliza see the pictures of her Princess Warrior party. "That child never forgets anyone who's been kind to her." I joined them, looking through photos of a beaming 8-year-old with a crown atop her growing hair, surrounded by friends and family. The joy in those images was palpable. After Sandra left, Eliza and I sat in companionable silence for the first time in weeks. "She made it," Eliza finally said. "After everything, Mia's getting to be a child again." I nodded, thinking of the statistics, the odds that little girl had overcome. "She's extraordinary." "Sandra told me something tonight," Eliza continued, tracing patterns on the wooden tabletop. "She said that after Mia's diagnosis, she kept thinking, why my child? Why us? But now she thinks, why not us? She said they were strong enough to handle it, even when they didn't feel strong." She looked up at me, her eyes clear and determined. "I've been asking the wrong question, James. I've been asking why we can't have a baby the easy way, when I should have been asking what path we're meant to take." I reached for her hand. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to try the last embryo transfer. But if it doesn't work, I don't want to do more IVF. I think we might be meant to be parents to a child who already exists, who needs us." The weight that had been pressing on my chest for months suddenly lifted. "Adoption?" She nodded. "Or foster care. There are so many children who need stable, loving homes. We have that to give, don't we? Even if we're not perfect, even if our timing isn't ideal." I moved around the table and knelt beside her chair, taking both her hands in mine. "We do. And you're right, maybe this struggle has been redirecting us to where we're supposed to be." She leaned forward until our foreheads touched. "I still want to try the last embryo. I need that closure. But whatever happens, we're going to be parents, James. One way or another." For the first time in our fertility journey, we approached the next steps with peace rather than desperation. The third embryo was transferred on a rainy Tuesday. We followed all the instructions: progesterone shots, rest, positive visualization, but with a new perspective. This wasn't our only path to parenthood. 2 weeks later, Eliza took the pregnancy test while I waited outside the bathroom door, both of us having learned that watching the test develop together only amplified the anxiety. The door opened. Eliza stood there, test in hand, her expression unreadable. "Well?" I asked, my heart in my throat. A smile broke across her face like sunrise. "It's positive." I stared at the 2 pink lines, unable to believe what I was seeing. "Are you sure?" She laughed, the sound like music after so many months of tension. "I took 3 tests. All positive. We're pregnant, James." I lifted her off her feet, spinning us both in a circle of pure joy. "We're having a baby," I whispered against her hair. "We're really having a baby." The pregnancy wasn't easy. Eliza developed hyperemesis gravidarum, severe morning sickness that required hospitalization twice during her first trimester. The irony wasn't lost on either of us, a nurse becoming the patient, receiving 4 fluids in the same hospital where she worked. "Your daughter is already asserting her personality," she joked weakly.